The best kinds of videos are always the ones where there's basically nothing to watch, and it's just me talking over a still image or something stupid like that. Also, just bringing it up so I don't get a bunch of comments about it. Ukulele not coming out today. Gonna do it tomorrow, probably. So that out of the way, this is part 0 of my Pokemon Yellow LP. The actual beginning of it will not be for a few weeks. It is going to be starting basically right after Super Metroid finishes, which I give another 2 or 3 segments. And then once that happens, then it's going to be on an alternating schedule with Ukulele, not necessarily sticking to a specific day of the week, but just kind of like what I did with Minish Cap and Yoshi's Island DS, where I just kind of alternate which one I'm recording. Because I don't want to make this a once per week type of thing. But I've explained the overall purpose and I've explained my idea for the Pokemon Yellow LP already, but I'm going to be restating it here just for convenience, because this is technically the start of it. It's part of a large project that I have planned out that will be going on for quite a while, I imagine, where I'll be playing through it, Crystal, and both Pokemon Stadium games to some degree. I don't think I'm going to be finishing the stadiums 100%, but I'll at least show off large chunks of them. And so I'm going to do my best to explain how this is all going to work. The reason I'm doing a part 0 instead of just jumping straight into it is because I kind of needed to set some expectations first, and I'm also going to be using suggestions from the comments here, just to kind of make it a little bit more interactive and hopefully figuring out what I'm doing before I do it. So there is a purpose behind this. But anyway, Pokemon Yellow is just going to be kind of a standard-ish playthrough. It will be using glitches, but not extensively. I wouldn't consider it necessarily a Pokemon Yellow with glitches type playthrough. That's not the focus, but though they will exist. My end goal is just kind of to finish the game with a team of Pokemon chosen by the comments, and it's probably going to be more than 6, but we'll get to that later. And I also want to complete the entire Pokedex. That's where the glitches kind of come into play for me to get version exclusives and whatnot. While that is going on, I will be doing some of the first Stadium game, basically using rentals for some of the facilities, just kind of going through it and whatnot. A lot of that's going to be, I say a lot of it, I say probably most of it is going to be streamed and then archived afterwards as sort of like a side series. It's not the main focus, but I did want to at least give it a shot. And then once I'm done with the main playthrough and my team is at a decent level, I may actually use the team itself in Stadium for some of the later cups and things like that. And that's basically my plans for Gen 1. After that's finished, I'm going to be doing basically the same thing with Crystal and Stadium 2. Crystal has fewer glitches to make use of, so I do have to get a few exclusives from other games and stuff like that. But I'm going to be playing through that one, and then doing Stadium 2 alongside it, and then afterwards, and all that crap, and my goal is to finish the entire Pokedex again. And they will be 2 distinct collections. I'm not going to be transferring everything up from the first game to the second. I will be recatching all the Gen 1 stuff. And so, that said, you may think that it's going to be very long and tedious and repeating the same content, and you are probably right. So I'm trying to think of ways to kind of get around this. I haven't completely solidified this idea yet. I'm still kind of working on how it's exactly going to work, but I think the playthrough as a whole is going to be kind of a mix of live and post commentary. If I'm doing an important battle, like a gym battle, or just kind of going through an area and not doing really boring stuff, I'll probably be doing commentary live on it and just kind of a normal type of video. And then during the more grindy sessions where I'm hunting out a bunch of specific Pokemon to catch or evolving them. Like, the evolving stuff is probably going to be off-screen entirely for that matter, but we'll see. That kind of stuff will probably be sped up, and I'll be talking over it, just in post. And so here's where my main kind of idea comes in for, like, I guess the gimmick of the commentary, if you can call it that. If you watched my Platinum LP, you'll recall that in each video up until I ran out, I would go over like one game that I played through in the past and explained kind of my experience with it, what team I used, and that kind of stuff. And it kind of added a little bit extra to talk about in each segment where I would have otherwise run out of material. In this playthrough, what I basically want to do is every time I catch a new Pokemon, I want to do sort of a synopsis of it. I was inspired to do this by the NeoGaf, I think it's pronounced Gaff, NeoGaf thread by Watch Birdie. I would Google that if you're interested. I'll give a link to it also. But that, and then also the Bog Leech Pokemon reviews, among a few other ones. There were a couple other sites I saw start to do it, but then never finished it. Where basically they just kind of give their opinions on every single Pokemon in the series, and they talk a little bit about like what they personally think about it, but also what impact it's had on the series as a whole, where its origins came from, its design choices, the stuff like that. And I feel like I could definitely do that myself. I have plenty to say about pretty much every single one of them. And so, let's say I'm going through the game, I catch a Weedle, and, well, Weedle isn't even in yellow, but it'll be with glitches, it will be. I catch the Weedle, and then for the next minute or two, I will talk extensively about Weedle and say, like, just basically everything I can think of about it. That was a poor example because Weedle doesn't have that much going on, but you get the point. And so that was kind of just my plan. Like, when something pops up with the Pokedex, like, I'll kind of cut away from the game for a bit, say my bit, and then cut back to the game. Then I realized that doing that would also, it would not help cut out the tedious bits, so that's where the whole post-commentary comes in. I'll probably have to find a way to work that in naturally, and I don't know, I think it'll be kind of cool. But here is where the main problem comes in, because as I said, I'm going to be like basically starting fresh in Crystal and catching everything again. So when I catch Weedle in the second playthrough, I'm not going to want to say the same stuff about it. So that means I should probably either make all of that stuff in the Crystal playthrough, or only talk about Gen 2 stuff in the Crystal playthrough, but then I don't know what I'll talk about for the Gen 1 stuff in that one, because I'm still going to be catching them on screen. So if anybody has any ideas, go ahead and let me know. Like, maybe I can bring up some certain aspect in one playthrough and then a different one in the next. I don't really know. I could just not do any of it until the Crystal playthrough and have Yellow just kind of be standard commentary. That's fine. It just, I'll see if anybody has any interesting ideas. But that's my main plan. And going back to the, like, the user input, or viewer input rather, as I said, I'm going to be taking suggestions for what kind of team to use, and so that's where this comes in. I have put together this image. I am going to link to this in the description as well, though you can kind of follow along with it as I'm talking. This image goes over all of the Gen 1 Pokemon, and basically when I've last used them, if at all. The reason I made this is because my overall hope here is to kind of play through with a team of stuff that I've not necessarily used a bunch of times before, but it's ultimately going to be up to the comments here. So specifically in this video, I want you to leave a comment saying basically what stuff you want me to use. It can either be like a personal favorite of yours or a couple, or it can be a whole team of 6. It doesn't really matter. But go ahead and let me know what you'd want me to try out, and at the, like, before I start the actual playthrough, I'll be going through all the comments and looking at them all, and basically from that decide what I'm going to do. I'm not strictly going to be sticking with a team of 6. It's probably going to be cycling. I don't know how many yet, but it'll be cycling to some degree. Gen 1 is really piss easy to get through if you know how to, like, exploit it, so I'm not worried about grinding or being underleveled, really. And I think it's going to work out much better in this game than it will in Crystal, where grinding is an issue, and in that one I'm definitely sticking with a team of 6, which even that is kind of a stretch. It's, like, really hard to level up towards the end of that. But, anyway, before we actually go over each part of this individually, like, the very top here is stuff that I've not used to any significant degree, and I'll kind of go through those a little bit more detailed in a second. And then as the image goes down, it's like I've last used this in insert year here until we get to the bottom, which is the list of things that are disqualified. I'm not going to be using any of these for reasons that I'm about to explain. The 3 starter families and Pikachu are on this list because they are overused as crap. Everybody who plays through a Gen 1 game uses one of these, and although out of this list I've not actually used the Squirtle family in almost 20 years, I still don't necessarily want to have that as one of my team members when there's other water types that could kind of use a share of attention instead of that one, if that makes any sense. Pikachu's a bit of a strange case because obviously Yellow has the following Pikachu gimmick, and I do want to make use of that, but since it's the starter, I'll have it around at the beginning of the game, and I'm going to keep it until I get a 6th permanent party member, at which case it'll be booted off, and I might bring it back like once in a while, just kind of to have it, but it's not going to be a permanent team member just because everybody uses Pikachu in Yellow. It's overdone. I don't want to do that. Raichu would be a bit more interesting, because it's seen less often than Pikachu, but I also don't really want to evolve the starter Pikachu, because it's like, if you don't know how the gimmick works, it actually won't allow you to use the Thunderstone on it. It, like, rejects it, so you have to trade it to a different game and evolve it there and then trade it back, and then basically all of its uniqueness is lost at that point. I wouldn't be able to use it for, like, the surfing Pikachu stuff, so I'm just going to keep it as it is. I'll get a different Raichu somewhere, like, either through a glitch or I'll trade one from Blue or something. So I'm not too worried about that, but I'm not going to be using any of those families. The legendary birds are disqualified because you get them at level 50. I don't expect my team to be much higher than 40 when I do the Elite Four, so that already gives them a huge boost. Plus, Moltres is found right before the Elite Four, so it would be like a last-minute addition, and that's just kind of lame. I could Mew glitch them in early, potentially, but again, I don't really want to. Like, they're not broken. They're actually, like, a lot of their... In Gen 1, movesets are so bad that, like, honestly, they're not even that great, but I'm going to be staying away from them. Mewtwo is just broken in every regard. Again, it's post-game, so you can't use it in the main game anyway unless I glitch it in early, but its stats are so broken that I wouldn't want to. And then Mew, you can get through the glitch pretty early on, but I don't want to use it for pretty much the same reason. Not as broken as Mewtwo, but it's still fairly strong, and I'd rather stick to other kinds of stuff. So, that out of the way, let's jump back up to the top of the image here. These are all the Pokemon that I've never used for an entire playthrough, and so therefore these are kind of like high on my list of stuff I'd like to try out. Large quantity of normal and water types here, which is a bit of a problem because I don't want the entire team to be overrun with those, but that's partially why I'm going to be swapping more than a team of 6. So just kind of glancing at these a little bit, let's see. A lot of the trade evolutions are on this, like 2 of them are on this list just because trading has always been kind of hard for me to have access to, so I've never actually used a Machamp or a Golem. I've used their pre-evolutions a few times, though. The Hitmons and the fossils are definitely kind of high on my priority list. I would like to try one of each of those. I kind of have a preference, but I'm going to be leaving it again to the comments. Like, if it leans heavily one way, which is against which one I wanted to use, then I'm fine with that. I'll be okay with either. But I'd like to incorporate them into the team in some way. Some weird stuff here with like Onyx and Scyther and Porygon, because they have Gen 2 evolutions, and so I would almost rather wait to use them until that game. But in the case of Porygon, it's Kanto only. I think the Metal Coat is not until the ship after the Elite Four. You might be able to get one earlier, I'm not positive. So it's like, I'd have to see how those work. But I'm not going to let that necessarily take away from votes. Like, if you want to see me use an Onyx in this, then that's fine. Snorlax is a surprising thing that I've never used. Same with Gyarados, actually. But, yeah, my only experience with Snorlax was post-game stuff, and even then it was pretty minimal, so I wouldn't mind using that one. Dragonite, I put on this list because I've technically not really used it for a normal playthrough, but it's also not going to get to its final evolution by the time I get to the end, so make of that what you will. You can still vote for it if you want, but keep in mind it will remain a Dragonair for most of the playthrough, probably. And I did use a Dragonair and Crystal, as I mentioned here. So moving on, I'm still surprised how it's been so long since I've used Dugtrio, and it's only been used twice. I feel like I use that in every playthrough, but apparently not. And I'm not going to be going over every single one of these. You can look at it if you want. I do want to point out that I placed Alakazam in the 2007 section, saying that the last time I've used an Alakazam was actually yellow in 1999, because I did use Kadabra more recently than that, and I consider them basically the same thing. You could say the same applies to Machoke and Machamp up in the never used section, but whatever, it's just splitting hairs at that point. So that's basically your list. It kind of just goes on, and then in the 2016 section was my recent all poison type playthrough, so that's where basically all of them are hanging out, plus Arcanine from the Heart Gold thing. And here's where I want to point out, if you are voting for what stuff you want me to use, you don't have to follow my guidelines 100%. Like, I'm not going to force you to. If you want me to use a Gengar or something again, even though I just used one recently in the red thing, like, that's fine. It's just, I'm going to be taking the list into account myself, and so I'm not going to be using a ton of stuff from the bottom, like maybe just a few here and there. And that's kind of why I'm making this, is just kind of let you know this is how I'm going to be gauging what I want to use. A good example would be for normal flying types. Up in the very top section, I've got Dodrio, never used it, wouldn't mind trying it out. Lower, we've got Fearow, which I last used in 2007 in a Gen 2 game, and once in Gen 1. And then a bit lower, we've got Pidgeot, which I last used 2010, but it was specifically a Gen 4 game. And that's another thing, is the generations I've used them in does make a pretty big difference. Like, move pools and abilities and stuff have either changed or come into existence, like, over the years, and so a Gen 1 Pidgeot is not going to be the same as a Gen 4 Pidgeot. I'm not terribly interested in it either way, but that's just for that one example. And so, like, if you notice something towards the bottom of the list, like, let me find one. The problem is the bottom of the list is mostly stuff I used in red. Let's say Nidoking, 2010, that was still 7 years ago, but it's relatively recent. That was in a Gen 4 game. I've never used it in an older one, so it would be a little bit different if I did. That kind of stuff. But I think I've said everything I needed to. This has already gone on way too freaking long. So go ahead and place your votes. Oh, and also, I will be taking random suggestions for the character, like the playable character name and the rival name, so just go ahead and shout those out if you want to. When it comes to doing Crystal, I'll probably do another video like this, but that one I might be making my own team more than taking the viewer suggestion, so we'll see how I feel. But right now it's just Yellow, and I guess just kind of look forward to this starting in a few weeks as soon as Metroid's done. I have been wanting to start this for a while, so yeah, I might actually rush to finish that game sooner than I planned.